Zombie apocalypse.
So let's talk about how to do the hanging leg raise. Everybody talks about this being a great ab exercise, and it is. And the reason is because the weight of the legs is being used as your resistance here, which makes it more difficult but also more rewarding. People, you jump up on the bar, and we can work, as I said, we can work the abs, we can work the obliques, and we can even work the hip flexors. Now you might be saying to yourself, why would I want to be working the hip flexors? Honestly, guys, a lot of quad strains come from having weak hip flexors. So what you want to do, though, is work on raising the legs past 90 degrees. So if you were to do that, you have to focus on where you're bending, right? If you bend here at the hip socket, and you can even bend your knees a little bit more if you had to get there, you want to lift and focus on lifting straight through the hip socket up and above 90 degrees. Okay, so from here to here. That's going to turn that into predominantly a hip flexor exercise. Again, strengthening those can sometimes offset some of the load that the quads take on that leads to chronic quad strains. So that's how you want to do it if you're getting those. Next, the abs. To do the abs, I've used this cue before to show your ass. It's really effective. What you want to do is jump up on the bar, and now the focus is on bending not just in the hip socket here, right, but bending at the pelvis, trying to curl your pelvis up. So from here, the focus is now on getting my ass to you. Okay, out in front to you, right? Straight out. By doing that, we're flexing the spine and using majority here, the abdominal muscles to do that job. Now, caution on how high to go. People do these exercises and they turn them into a toes to bar. What happens when we do that? We're going too high. Why? If I take up and I go all the way up to here, I can stay here for a long time. The reason is because once I get my legs all the way up, gravity is now pushing and acting straight down through the leg with very little resistance. If I have my legs dropped even 20 degrees from here right to there, it becomes way harder because gravity is now pushing down on my legs, making my abs do more work. So don't go too high. Finally, obliques. This is actually one of the best oblique exercises you could possibly do. And all it matters is, once again, where are you bending from? Don't bend from here, don't bend from here, bend from here. Watch the difference. Grab up. Now I'm trying to flex out my rib cage. My legs are inconsequential. All I do is come here and flex there and up. There with a twist. There. So you can see, depending upon where you concentrate on initiating the curl from, you can determine which muscle does the majority of the work. Now, we talked about modifications. It's a lot harder to hold on and support your body weight here, but you could do the same 3 exercises right here in the captain's chair as you see me doing. You can still do the flexion for the hip. You can still do the curls for the abs. You can still do the twist with that bending here in the obliques to hit that area more effectively. And also, if you have an issue in your shoulder, maybe a bad labrum tear, something that makes hanging from a bar a little bit difficult, once again, the captain's chair is going to be your friend so you can bear the weight through your elbows and forearms as opposed to having to hang all of your weight on the bar. Guys.
What's going on YouTube? I'm Scott from ScottHermanFitness.com. I'm here at Answers Fitness Gym, and I want to show you guys how to use the Hammer Strength Abdominal Crunch Machine. Now, I always see a lot of people use this machine. It's a great machine, but they don't use it correctly, okay? What you need to do, and this is more of a rule of thumb for the majority of people who use this machine, if you take your fist and you slide this up and bring it up just high enough so your fist fits in, it's a pretty good height to use. And then you adjust the weight to a weight that you can do, you're not hurting yourself. And now what you want to do is sit down, underhook your feet, make sure you point your toes up, lean back, and when you lean back, your shoulders should be in line with the pad, okay, right here. Keep your head back, hold on to the handles, arch your back a bit, and now when you come down, you're going to focus on something straight across, because you don't want your neck to go down, and you don't want it to go back. And you're going to breathe out as you come forward. You always breathe out when you exert a force. So, toes up, everything's tight, come up. Come back so the weights almost touch. Down again. Come back all the way, and then come down. Now, a lot of people do this machine like this. It doesn't do anything. You're not activating your abs. All you're doing is looking like you're having a seizure on the ab machine. So what you want to do is make sure that you keep your back straight, come all the way down, and then all the way back. All the way down, all the way back. And I'm going to demonstrate for you an alternating toe touch. First thing you want to do is lay it out on the floor. And the next step is going to be taking your arms and putting them over your head in a Y position. Okay? So I'm making a Y right now. And the next step is you're going to make sure that you're flat on the ground, you maintain a neutral spine at all times. So when you come up to touch your toe, so when you come up like this, and you're alternating, so your right arm touches your left leg, your left arm touches your right leg. When you come up, reach for your toe. Do not have your head like this. Maintain a neutral spine. If you have your head like that, you're instinctively not going to come up as high. If you keep your head neutral, stare at the ceiling, you'll come up higher. It's a subconscious thing. It's just the way it works. So do it that way. Listen to me. Okay, guys? Alright, so what you're going to do is get like this, and then come up. Touch your toe. Touch your toe. Breathe out as you come up. That's when you're exerting the force. One more. One more like that. And that's how you do an alternating floor toe touch.
First and foremost, as you guys know the drill, we're going to 3 common mistakes. The first one, this is going to be opposite to all the other videos we make. You don't want to retract that scapula. This is the one time you want your spine completely bent. So you want to get that hunch even when you're lifting up. You want to hold that hunch because you have to consider you're actually trying to crunch here. If you have this retracted, you can't really get a good crunch. You need this forward to be able to squeeze into that crunch. And that is number one. As you can see, Kyle's doing it here. He's got his back very postured. It looks very awkward. It looks like he's trying to kiss the floor, and that's what you're gonna get, as opposed to actually trying to drive that chin all the way down to the knee and really get that big contraction that you're aiming for with this exercise. Number 2, guys, is trying to kiss the floor. This is the most common mistake because you're actually completely screwing up your range of motion. Think of a crunch, you're trying to drive yourself all the way forward towards your knee. This is the exact same thing, it's just a different plane of motion coming from the top. So you want to start with that back hyper-extended, and as you guys can see, I'm driving that chin inward. Looks a little silly, I look very hunched, but that's what's going to give me that squeeze. And then kind of like a 2.5 of sorts is to hold the squeeze. You need to play around until you actually feel the squeeze and you feel all of your abs being worked. If you're going too heavy, you're really going to screw yourself up because you're not going to get the contraction you need to make this exercise worthwhile. If you're going too light, you're not going to feel anything. You're going to have to rep it for days, and that is another huge issue. So really drive that chin inwards, kind of push everything down, really squeeze in that stomach and focus on that mind-muscle connection.
Common mistake number 3 is distance. I find so many people like to go way too close. By going too close, like literally up to here, it's going to be limiting your range of motion. And a lot of people think they're going to be working their abs more by going far back here. This is also going to be limiting your range of motion. So I highly recommend finding your sweet spot, making sure to get a nice squeeze, a nice contraction, and not limiting your range of motion, getting the most out of this exercise.
Alright guys, from the A to Z of this exercise, I'm going to keep it American even though we're Canadian. We're going to start from setup to finish. So first and foremost, there's 2 kinds of setups. Some people go high knees, kind of closer knees. That'll keep your hip upward more. I like this a lot better because I get a lot more initial hip flexion, which really helps you drive the force into your core. Whereas the people that have their feet really separated and wide, I find can get a lower range of motion. And a lot of people say to keep your butt down, but I recommend kind of keeping it up, but keeping your hips under flexion to where you can drive into the core, because that's where that whole exercise lies. Like even if you're just standing, you look a bit dumb, but you got to learn how to squeeze into that core. And I find by starting with that hip flexion and then driving inward into your core region, you're going to get an amazing contraction. So that's why I would recommend closer knees. If you do find wider knees more comfortable because your hips, you can get better flexion, that's up to you. Next and most important is your grip. You're going to get a grip like a Facebook grip. You're gonna grab on. Now here, I really recommend pulling it down all the way to the shoulder. Some people say head, but I find when you let it stretch and move, it's easy to start overcompensating by pulling through your arms with your lats, and that's not what we're going for. We want that right on the ab. So you're gonna pull that downward here, as you guys can see. I have it nice and close to my head. Now from here, I kind of get that weird little bend in the back, right? So that's a hyperextension of the back, which is normally a horrible thing in exercise. So this is the one time we're gonna run contrary to that typical rhetoric. But here, past that, I'm driving the chin inward, and I'm trying to put a lot of force on my abs and keep that all the way down to a huge contraction. You guys can see, I like to hold and make sure I'm really isolating the muscle. Then on the way up, you're gonna wanna go to where you feel your abs nice and extended. Not overextended, you don't wanna go too high, that's another common issue. You wanna go just where they're fully stretched out and fully contracted, just like any other muscle. Just like a bicep, you extend, you contract, and that's all it is. And with anything you do, that's what's important. But for this one, above all, play around with things, give it a try, and make sure you're actually feeling your abs when doing this exercise.
Decline bench, keep the arms straight, take the medicine ball all the way back overhead, and then lift up, focusing on moving towards the ceiling more than in front of you.